Yes, the Saudis have a role to play in Lebanon and the entire region. We know the Saudis and Israelis have been talking and trying to reach an agreement with the help of the Biden administration for an agreement between those two countries. The problem here is that Saudi Arabia and the reforms that MBS is trying to make in his country, which in some cases are good reforms and needed in order to improve the transparency and the accountability and the involvement of the Saudis in the region. In their dealings with Israel, Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, thinks he can reach a peace agreement in the area and a peace agreement with the Saudis without paying any dues himself. And I think he's going to be surprised here. I don't feel that MBS is going to give up on the Palestinians.
I had the opportunity to meet with Congressman Nick Rahall on the Capitol show. It was my honor to have him a few days ago. We had a great discussion, a very long session. I began by asking him strategic questions about very hot topics and fights. First, I asked about his assessment of the situation in Lebanon. Things haven't been going well in this country, which is the home of our ancestors, both of us. How can Lebanon survive as a nation state, and how can America help the Lebanese to overcome their problems? Hear what he said.
Well, the situation in Lebanon is not good, to put it very mildly. The situation is terrible, and the situation is getting worse. And it is incumbent upon the United States that Lebanon not turn into a failed state. There are many, many complicated reasons for the situation in Lebanon being what it is today. But again, I cannot underemphasize or overemphasize the need for the United States to continue and even become more involved in what is happening in Lebanon, because it is in the United States' best interest that Lebanon not become a failed state.
Then I told him the following. We all know that Hezbollah is working to destroy Lebanon and the Lebanese entity. How can the whole world stop Hezbollah from spreading chaos in Lebanon? Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran. How can the United States and the whole world, or the West, at least defeat Iran's vicious schemes for the Arab world and the Islamic world? This is what he told me.
There's no question that Hezbollah is the elephant in the room. Many are afraid to discuss Hezbollah and the bad role that it plays within the country of Lebanon, but they're afraid to discuss the issue of Hezbollah. There's no question that Hezbollah cannot be solved, the issue of Hezbollah cannot be solved without a regional consensus. Iran and the United States, the negotiations must involve Hezbollah and other nefarious groups that Iran sponsors in the region. And only through a regional settlement, or even a comprehensive peace settlement in the region, can the issue of Hezbollah be addressed in the correct manner. They are a force in the Lebanese politics. They have their military wing, of course, in Lebanon that is very influential, and it's up to the United States and the surrounding people in the area, our allies in the area, to help resolve the issue of Hezbollah. And that includes the Saudis. They have a role to play in the resolution of the Hezbollah conflict as well. And the Saudi-Iranian conflict plays into the situation. So again, we have a complicated issue with Hezbollah, but it needs to be addressed in order for Lebanon to get back to what it must be, and that is a country controlling its own destiny.
Later, I shifted the discussion to this question. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, granted an interview to Fox News, and what he said was very important. if they get one, we have to get one for security reasons and the balance of power in the Middle East. He was referring to Iran. I had another question for Congressman Rahall about Saudi Arabia. How does he reflect on the changes going inside the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia now? And this is what he told me.
Yes, the Saudis have a role to play in Lebanon and the entire region. We know the Saudis and Israelis have been talking and trying to reach an agreement with the help of the Biden administration for an agreement between those two countries. The problem here is that Saudi Arabia and the reforms that MBS is trying to make in his country, which in some cases are good reforms and needed in order to improve the transparency and the accountability and the involvement of the Saudis in the region. In their dealings with Israel, Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, thinks he can reach a peace agreement in the area and a peace agreement with the Saudis without paying any dues himself. And I think he's going to be surprised here. I don't feel that MBS is going to give up on the Palestinians. And there's going to have to be an agreement with the Bibi Netanyahu government about the Israeli settlements, about their continued illegal outposts, and about the continued right wing of the Israeli government. And here, Bibi Netanyahu has to be courageous. If he wants to reach an agreement with the Saudis, he has to make some concessions, major concessions, in the way he has been treating the Palestinians, and he has to sell that to his right wing of his government. And again, this has repercussions in Lebanon as well. Lebanon has been crucial to maintaining what is a cold peace, and it's a very tense situation on the Israeli-Lebanon border today. And again, that is in the U.S. best interest that situation, that border, not erupt into a major conflict. But it's very tense along the border today, and there the Lebanese armed forces, which the United States supports, to our credit, has a role to play as well in maintaining the stability along that southern border.
I focused later on Cop28. This is what I asked him. What are your expectations of Cop28 to take place in the United Arab Emirates in less than 2 months? I inquired during the interview about his past congressional work, knowing that Congressman Rahall introduced the Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007. How does this legislation could be related to COP28? This is how he answered me.
Well, it relates because it has worldwide repercussions, and certainly repercussions in the Middle East. The Cop28, for example, is an effort to involve all countries in regional sustainability and stability. And this has repercussions not only in climate change in the area, but improving the lives of the people, improving the energy availability of the people, and that enabling them to obtain adequate energy supplies, adequate health care supplies, jobs for their people. It's all related, and it's all a part of involving all countries together, not one trying to supersede or beat out the other one, but all hand in hand in a cooperative effort to improve the lives of the people in that region. And in this regard, in regard to energy, let me say that the agreement between Lebanon and Israel in regard to the oil and gas fields along the southern border and in the Mediterranean Sea is an optimistic sign that perhaps things might be changing within Hezbollah, for example. They dealt with Israel on this issue, maybe not directly, but again, the United States deserves credit for bringing the two countries together to reach this agreement in regard to the oil and gas fields. Now, it's not the panacea, it's not going to solve all the problems, not by any stretch of imagination, but it is an indication that there are some practical, down-to-earth aspects of Hezbollah that may realize they're going to have to do some good for Lebanon if they want to improve their image within that country.
One more question I submitted was about his membership in the Democratic Party. Overall, how he evaluates the record of the Biden administration so far. His answer was the following.
Well, I think what needs to be said here is that the misperception that the United States is withdrawing from the Middle East and not doing anything or not being active either in the Middle East or in Lebanon is a misperception. This administration is doing quite a bit in the Middle East. And we have to remember that there are educational institutions in the Middle East, LAU, for example, in Beirut, and AUB, that the United States supports. And if we help support education in Lebanon, that's an important role for us to play to improve the lives of the people and the young people of Lebanon and giving them hope for future. Not only in education, but there are business interests as well that the United States private companies have in Lebanon and in the region itself. So the Biden administration, and again, as I referred earlier, is very supportive of the LAF. And the Lebanese Armed Forces is really the only institution in Lebanon now that has some sense of stability and is keeping the country from becoming a failed state that it might very well become. The LAF is an important partner with our country, with the United States. They have been effective in prohibiting ISIS, for example, and gaining a foothold in Lebanon. They've helped the United States fight terrorism in the region. So the LAF deserves the United States' continued support and even more support, actually, that we continue to fight for here in Washington. And let me say as well that the Lebanese diaspora around the United States and around the world deserves a great deal of credit here as well, because they have been very active in keeping the Biden administration's feet to the fire, so to speak, in regard to Lebanon and making sure that Lebanon does not get forgotten when it comes to this part of the world. So to them and to the various Lebanese groups in Washington that work for the country of Lebanon, that are very much concerned about the country of their ancestors, they deserve support as well.
I had another question about the future of American policy. I said, do you think that Donald Trump will be re-elected as president in November 2024? He told me that.
Oh, that's a hard predictor to say, because not many of us had it right the last go around. When he faced Hillary Clinton. But I believe that if Donald Trump is the nominee of the Republican Party and Joe Biden is the nominee of the Democratic Party, that Joe Biden will be the victorious candidate, because Donald Trump will certainly invigorate and get the base of the Democratic Party out to work to make sure he is defeated. Any other Republican candidate that might be their nominee could very well beat Joe Biden, but not Donald Trump.
My last question was about his legacy in the politics of his home state. He is an icon in West Virginia politics, having demonstrated the highest standards of ethics and of serving his constituency tirelessly. How does he characterize politics now in his home state of West Virginia? This is what he said.
Well, let me say first, I love my home state. It always will be my home state. It's where I was born and raised. It's where my parents were born and raised. After my grandfathers, both of my grandfathers came here from Lebanon in the early 1900s. The people of West Virginia are very proud people. They're hardworking. They're God-fearing. They have fought for this country, the United States of America, and they believe deeply in the values of hard work. What has happened over the decades since I've had the honor of representing West Virginia in the Congress, and it has been an honor, and I thank the people for giving me that honor. But what has happened is they have realized that the Democrats that ruled for so long We're not really addressing their issues, the issue of jobs and the issue of health care and the issue of a better life for themselves and their families in the future. And so they got frustrated and they started turning to the Republican Party. Certainly President Obama was a factor in this because of his perceived war on coal, and we are a coal mining state, and he was perceived as wanting to put the industry out of business through the EPA and various environmental regulations. That was a factor in turning the people of West Virginia away from the Democratic Party and toward the Republican Party, where they are today. There's not a Democrat except for Senator Manchin left in our congressional delegation. The state legislature is now all Republicans. There are very few Democrats. In the past, it used to be there were very few Republicans. So it's completely turned around now, and it's definitely a pro-Trump, to the right Republican Party state, which I think is kind of frustrating. But I've always said in politics, in life, what goes around comes around. And some of the cuts, draconian cuts, our state legislature is making today in education, for example, is very bad for the future of our state and the future of our youth. And so I hope that cooler heads will prevail in the years ahead and will come back to where the state should be. And that, in my opinion, is a more moderate, middle-of-the-road type approach.
Finally, I thank immensely the Honorable Congressman Nick Rahall. He urged indeed our dialogue with so many good thoughts and good vibes. Thank you for watching.
Hey, Maria Malouf here. Please click to like and subscribe to Maria Malouf TV YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.